time for more ReZero content. We got season 3's best episode. Every new episode is the best episode, but unironically, episode 10 probably could be one of the best episodes of season 3 so far. Apparently, it took like a year and a half to make this specific episode, huh?
Episode 10 is here, and what an episode. This is probably the best episode of season 3 so far, tied with episode 5. Stay tuned because there is also a lot cut this week.
Okay.
Don't need to waste any time, let's get right to the episode. Which opens up immediately where episode 9 left off with Capella storming the city hall. She mocks Ferris for being all by himself and remarks how Crush lost against the blood. This section is way more cool in the novels, but we can touch on that later, and we see the woman lying in the bed is actually Anastasia, and Capella walks straight to her trap. There's something strange going on here. Just before in episode 9, Priscilla accuses Anastasia of hiding something herself, and now we see Anastasia actually capable of doing damage to someone like Capella, even though she didn't fire a shot against Sirius.
Spirit gun. Her finger gun. Did she intentionally hide the power against Sirius? Could she not use it back then due to some sort of reason? And now something has changed from then and now? I don't know, but we didn't see this power before, yeah.
Something is up with Anastasia, and if you have any theories, please post them in the comments below.
I don't know about the power stuff. It's more of how she most likely knew ahead that Priscilla would be under attack. That's why she brought all the royal candidates over, right? Most likely she had an informant network, she understood the intel, and then probably called people over because she knew that the Archbishop would be attacking.
After this, Anastasia taps on the floor, and the floor underneath Capella opens. And not just that floor, but the floors below her as well, and she plummets all the way down to the very underground. She bursts out laughing as she looks up and remarks how it's such an intense welcome, but a voice calls out to her telling her she isn't going back. She tells
I just realized what this face reminded me of. I was thinking, during that episode, why does this look so familiar? Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise. Can I find the person here? It's one of the fucking I can't just find it here right now. But there's a character. Oh, wait. It's kind of this character. Not really. Basically, it's this one, if you guys remember. The hair is a bit longer. That's who it was. I was like, this person looks really familiar. It's the hairstyle here. It's this one.
She bursts out laughing as she looks up and remarks how it's such an intense welcome, but a voice calls out to her telling her she isn't going back. She tells him she won't hold back against someone who hides their own hideousness, and Aldebaran replies he isn't interested in doing that either. He draws his sword and tells her he's in a bad mood today, so she better get her ass out of here before he dies. Now, there's some stuff to talk about here. First of all, some people were very distrusting of Al and wondering where the hell he was and how Capella got into the building. Well, here we are. He was a part of the trap, and now we finally get to watch my boy fight on the big screen.
Did Azeroth change something up recently? Why is he talking at 2x speed? Holy shit, watching this video is giving me anxiety.
Now, Capella's line towards Al on the surface seems to be referring to how he hides his face with his helmet, but perhaps there's even more to Aldebaran than meets the eye. Something even Priscilla
Authority. I think that Al has an authority that he's hiding.
Is completely unaware of, per her comments from episode 9. Additionally, there's some very odd phrasing here from Al. He tells Capella to get the hell out of here before he dies. What the hell does that even mean?
Oh yeah, what the hell did that mean? I thought it was like, was it a sub error? Before he dies? Is that like a what's it called? Like a very self-deprecating joke he's making? I doubt it. Does that have something specific to do with his powers?
Every episode Al is on screen, he seems to get more and more suspicious. After this, we cut back to Regulus versus Reinhardt.
Are we actually gonna see him fight though? I don't think so, man. I think we're gonna get cocked out of that fight.
And we see Regulus just laying waste to Priscilla, basically. Regulus asks Reinhardt how many feelings Reinhardt has trampled upon to build his happiness, and that is probably such a cutting remark for Reinhardt, who feels responsible for Tiresia's death in many regards, so naturally, he throws him. They try to execute Plan Drown, but it doesn't work. There's some good narration that couldn't make it into the anime here. Super reflects on the harshness of killing someone, the gravity that making that choice requires as he draws his line. Archbishops to Subaru aren't people, and these are beings he dehumanizes to justify his murder towards them. I mean, maybe it's fair. Regulus breaks out of the ice, and Emilia notes that he has no ice on his body, and he's not even wet. Reinhardt re-engages, and
oh, that kind of adds on to the whole, him basically not even existing in this reality and basically having a pause button, right? Like his entire clothing doesn't even get wet. No destruction, no nothing. His entire being is in this like almost like out of reality stasis state, right? Because that's what we were talking about, being, you know, him being like a video game character who's basically just permanently paused.
Subaru notes that Regulus isn't being blown away by Reinhardt's attacks anymore, as if something had changed. He blows Reinhardt away, and he cuts clean through Emilia's ice walls, flying away from the fight entirely. Emilia versus Regulus begins, but it all seems useless. He considers himself the perfect fulfilled person, which pisses Emilia off. If he was fulfilled, he wouldn't make his wives give up on life. Even through her anger, she trusts Subaru's recommendation to run, and Regulus just sits there and watches before pulling up a ball of water.
This part was pretty shocking. And the Emilia part too was really cool, when she was just shitting on him and roasting him. And the whole fulfillment thing, it does feel very contradictory. His actions, how he treats his wives, how he continues to want more and more and more, yet he never seems to be fulfilled.
This water is used to fire literal rain bullets around the city, and we get this really good section where Emilia makes them ice skates and her and Subaru skate around the city, and it's very cool. It's actually one of the scenes I was most excited to see because it has so much potential. It didn't completely live up to it, but we'll get to that later. Regulus slowly approaches them. Okay, maybe not slowly, but he's cracking the ice over each step and says that every now and then, people like them mistakenly think they're special. And this is what really puts the final nail in the coffin for the similarities between Regulus and Subaru. Of course, Regulus is owning himself by saying that, but he's also owning the kind of mentality Subaru had when he first came to Lagunica, and he's very much a different man now. Emilia asks if Subaru...
Yeah, I mean, like, the first thing he ever did was, like, show up and try to use, like, magic powers. But he didn't have any. Because he's like, I'm the stereotypical isekai character. I should have OP powers. I didn't. Regulus is basically that. From the beginning, he had all that shit. Basically can assume that Regulus is a very special person, right? Special because he got lucky with his powers being so OP. Sure.
Subaru would be okay on his own, and he confirms. They skate off in separate directions as ice pummels Regulus, and Subaru goes off to extend the ice path. Regulus is growing more and more pissed off, and tells Emilia this is why she isn't his wife, and Emilia is happy about that, as she wouldn't be able to smile. He replies that he loves their faces, so no smile is needed. This really goes to show just how disconnected the archbishops are from one another as well, because what drives Capella mad is surface-level attraction and how she can't understand why if the form is changed, love is lost. Subaru yanks Emilia over, which leads to a great scene of Regulus slamming into something, and right when things look like they're going to take a turn for the worst, Reinhardt returns. To be frank, there are a ton of cuts to this section, so I would recommend staying tuned for that. Reinhardt tries to throw Regulus into his own attack to see if that damages him, but it doesn't. Another plan failed, so Subaru thinks and thinks and thinks, asking Emilia if she has any hints, and that's when she remembers what 184 called him earlier, Little King. And it all clicks in Subaru's head.
Lions are. If you didn't have the constellation knowledge, you would never know any of this stuff.
See, the astronomy lessons I've been giving in these videos aren't for no reason, and now Subaru knows that too. He asks if his hand was warm when she was being choked, and she responds that it didn't feel like anything. And that's when he calls it, Reinhardt, check if his heart is actually beating. Cutting back to Priscilla versus Sirius, Sirius ignites the control tower because of how dark it is outside and informs them that she has taken Kiritaka into custody, more or less confirming our suspicions from earlier. Liliana is slowly drawn in by the effects of soul washing until, well, this, I guess. She breaks free from it, but before we can get into why that is, the citizens of Priscilla surround the fights.
She breaks from it because the post-nut clarity was stronger than the feelings for Sirius. Sure, why not?
Causing Priscilla to put up walls of fire on the waterways. She rejects Sirius' idea of becoming one being what love really is, stating she is unique and set apart from all as the most outstanding figure in the world. She tells Liliana to fulfill her role, so she heads off and does Liliana things. Sirius comments that Priscilla is like nothing she has ever seen before, an alien element mixed into the world, which is when they start their sword dance. Well, chain dance. She claims she wants to save Priscilla, no matter the heart. There is the possibility for change. Quote, have you mistaken the act of concealing weakness for strength? There's a fundamental limit to what people can do alone. An interesting message from Sirius because it's the message ReZero itself puts out with Arc 3 and 4, but Priscilla tells her to shut up.
Is that a flawed thing about Priscilla? About her closing her heart off like that? Is her development supposed to be when she opens her heart? I don't know. Arc 3 and 4, it was all about, like, you know, humbling yourself, asking for help, understanding what's going wrong, learning from your mistakes, opening her heart, doing better. Priscilla doesn't need to do that and she's still succeeding. We'll see where that goes, but I have a feeling that, like, maybe if we go too much into that path of her opening her heart, it could be something so poetic of, like, that's when the Sun Princess falls. The reason that she, like, opened her heart is how she dies. Something like that could be such a poetic ending for this character.
Which is when Sirius name drops something. Iris and the King of Thorns, which sends Priscilla into a furious bloodlust. Why is that? If you have any theories, post them in the comments below.
It sounds like a tale right? It sounds like some sort of folklore, some sort of common story. Why would she get so triggered over that? Maybe that story is based off of someone that Priscilla actually knew that was dear to her. We're talking about, her shutting her heart off. Probably something about betrayal rights and backstabbing in the past. Maybe the story directly resonates with that. And there was a bunch of other titles mentioned after too.
Before the episode ends, we cut back to the Regulus fight. Reinhardt fires an attack to confirm Subaru's hypothesis, and in response, Regulus fires back by throwing him at the moon. He throws him upward with all of his strength, and Reinhardt flies up and up, and uses the divine protection of telepathy to tell Subaru that he was right. So
I'll be back.
Subaru does what he does best and starts talking shit, telling him that he's been cornered, and that he has a right to hear, or else he would die from the embarrassment at losing without knowing why.
That was a really cool scene, which gets my hopes up too. It reminded me of what happened against Betelgeuse too, because he would use his signature line of like, my brain is what was it? My brain is like shaking, breaking. My brain trembles, right? Stuff like that. I remember in that good run where Subaru is facing up Betelgeuse and he's basically saying like, bro, like he's using his lines against him. And then basically the same shit happened with Regulus too, where it's just like, hey, I know or something, it's like, you have rights too. And suddenly it's feeling really good.
He remarks that Regulus's poor attitude gives them the advantage because instead of just killing them, he wants to just sit there and yap, and after informing Amelia of what he knows, she casts a giant Hyoma and drops it right on his head. We get a big chunk of Subaru's internal analysis, and I'm going to assume it's cut, so I will relay it here. If it's not, well, that's cool. Quote, Regulus is scum, but that doesn't explain everything. He's the physical embodiment of craving for others' approval and the need to be the center of attention. He's constantly talking about being free of worldly desires and brags about being perfectly content or fulfilled, but he can't live without other people constantly affirming his worth.
Because he's greedy. He's a hollow, a hole in his heart that can never be filled. No matter what he does, he'll never be satisfied.
He refuses to stop until he's standing above everyone else through sheer terror and violence. Not because he's naturally violent, but because he's narrow-minded and petty. He doesn't want to boast about winning because he's strong. He wants to force everyone to surrender because he's scared of his own shadow. He isn't killing them because he can't, but he wants to force everyone to surrender to his greatness, and as Subaru describes it, it's mental masturbation. And that's when he reveals it to him. His hypothesis on his power. His power is to be able to press pause in the middle of a game. Lionheart. The ability to stop time for his physical body. And that marks the end of episode 10. Regulus's power has been the subject of much speculation, and well, how close were you to it? Let me know in the
We were not close to it at all. I still, like, it makes sense, but vector control made a lot of sense. Vector control as in, like, from Toru the series, right? A certain magical index or a certain scientific railgun, right? You have the character accelerator, who basically seems to have this power that you basically just control forces. And because of that, you're able to just touch a pebble and just it shoots out into a distance. You got that auto guard up and everything. But Reinhardt's power, I think, because not taking damage was never explained through just the vector control stuff. So now it actually makes a lot more sense.
Comments below. So in terms of adaptation, it's a big episode, and I'm really trying to not let my expectations get in the way, but I guess that's hard.
I guess he's disappointed. That's why being an anime-only monkey is better. Ignorance is bliss. Or you're gonna get disappointed. No other anime is getting disappointed right now. No other fandom is getting disappointed right now, though. Just like Sakamoto Days is, right? I think ReZero fans are probably eating in comparison.
I think if I try to focus on what the episode did well, it's definitely a contender for best of the season along with 5, but this episode is just missing so much that I was really hoping for.
Such
as? To start, I didn't think Al vs. Capella took place in such an open, bright area. In my head, it was in this really tight, uncomfortable place, and Al just like crept out of the darkness. And that's where the fight would take place. I don't know.
If that happened, bro, and we couldn't see anything, fuck that noise. One of the things I hate the most in anime, go watch orb reactions. Whenever it's nighttime, you can't see shit. It's all dark. What the hell are we doing, bro? I much prefer brightly lit areas than dark areas, even if it means being unfaithful to the source material. Like, whenever it's just complete darkness, I hate that shit.
I don't know. I also like the ice skating. Like I mentioned, though, it was one of my most anticipated scenes of the season. I just thought it would be way more fun and dynamic. In my head, and this is like one of the only W's this anime gets, I thought it would be like Deku using Black Whip in the MHA anime.
Don't know
Seems
that
like Reinhardt being
comparison.
thrown into the sky also just didn't hit. It was him being scaled down, basically. I try to stay fair because I know
Yeah, yeah. I instead of like a crazy animation of Reinhardt being shuttled up to the moon and to space, yeah, he just kind of becoming smaller and smaller, right, with the still frame.
my all-powerful mind palace can create imagery way better than animators can, since my mind isn't bogged down by a schedule. But I don't know. I was just hoping for more from this episode. But let me know what you guys thought of it.
I think that's a fair criticism. If you really cared about this one scene of Reinhardt being shot up, I think there could have been a lot more cooler ways to do it. A better, like a camera that basically, rather than just looks at Reinhardt from this angle as he, gets scaled down smaller and smaller, you could have had the camera basically go fly up with him with, crazy, black lines, impact lines, speed lines and stuff like that, shuttering of the camera movements to kind of like portray that like you are basically being shuttled upwards and it's all crazy going up.
I would like to hear some good opinions. We're working with a lot of cut content this week, much to my frustration. It's also probably one of the things that makes me a bit more frustrated about this episode. Firstly, the Ferris and Capella section at the start of the episode was much more cruel in the novels. Ferris still bursts into a rage, but Capella torments him, slowly turning into Crush piece by piece. And unless I read it wrong, I feel like I'm being gaslit by the anime at this point. Ferris didn't stab her intentionally. She slowly pierced herself with Ferris's blade in Crush's form to essentially torture him.
The anime, I guess, then gave Ferris a dub here, right? Because rather, like in the anime, Felix did it because he wanted to do it, to prove it, to stand on business. Sounds like the source material, Capella's like jeering and Felix has no control. He's just like, ugh. And the Capella's just like walking into the knife.
The anime also completely removed this little section of Ferris rotting away Capella's arm, using some kind of magic we don't know about.
Rotting away?
Moved this little section of Ferris rotting away Capella's arm.
You can do that? Water magic can do that? Sounds like reverse water magic. I don't know, I thought water magic was all about healing, but if you can heal, I guess you can do the opposite too?
Using some kind of magic we don't know about.
Okay.
A fun gag was cut where Emilia passes Reinhardt back the Dragon Sword, and Subaru goes, "Can you draw it?" To which Reinhardt confirms nothing has changed, and
Nope.
Emilia then asks, "Well, will you use the sheath as a weapon?" And Subaru's like, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. Emilia, he wouldn't do that." And then,
And then he basically did. Even like the swing of a sword, he shot up against the big body of water to cut through it, right? That was basically to the sheath.
So, he does it. Just a funny gag moment that didn't make it in. There are, however, many more important cuts to this fight. Before Reinhardt gets sent through a ton of buildings, and when Regulus isn't getting blown back anymore, Reinhardt's leg explodes below the knee, and Regulus implies that he can use anything as a weapon, including his very own breath. A very important
That's right. Regulus could literally fart, and that could be used against us.
clue in utilization of his power, which is just sort of gone. Additionally, we lose a great scene of Emilia and Subaru working together. While escaping on ice skates, Emilia makes icicles in the air that Subaru whips onto, and they quite literally fly around the city. It's very cool, and I'm very sad it's gone, especially because Subaru calls himself the Princess on Ice. A big cut is when Reinhardt returns. Regulus notes that his right leg isn't damaged anymore, which we talked about in the prior cut, and calls him disgusting because he can also use healing magic. Reinhardt, however, corrects him. He has no talent for healing magic.
What is it? Is he just reversing the damage?
The spirits in the very atmosphere simply notice he's injured and want to help him.
That's so bullshit. But we know that Reinhardt basically monopolizes mana, right? He has no internal mana. Mana itself is like, feels like it's unworthy to be within Reinhardt. Instead, everything else around him just bends to his will. If he's around, magic users can't really use their thing if Reinhardt's, actually doing a lot of shit, right? So even the spirits are like, oh shit, I got you, buddy. Bro is the best spirit knight without even being a spirit knight.
I really don't know why this was removed. It's great for all you funny power scalers. The final cut is an entire section. That little end part with Subaru and Regulus, as Subaru tells him that he knows what his power is, it wasn't just them standing there. It actually took place as Subaru parkoured around the entire city, dodging Regulus' attacks.
Parkour!
It was a really cool scene, and it was a really cool scene that had Subaru think about the lessons he learned from Arc 4.
Okay.
His arms and legs were heavy, everything was going out of control and terrible. Pessimism threatened to dominate his thoughts, but pushing it all aside, Subaru put his all into searching for the light that would allow him to escape that pinch. Subaru now has to prioritize his own life. Could he overcome Pristella by looping here repeatedly? Obviously. Being able to loop is extremely overpowered, but if he were to do that, what would Season 2 be for? He has to want to save himself as
fuck straight bet. We're never using Return by Death again, bro.
As badly as he wants to save others, and while yes, he did die a few times in Arc 5 so far, none of them were to help him overcome the Sin Archbishops. It was just how things unfortunately shook out. Frankly, Subaru keeps getting all of his cool content cut, so I keep getting comments and chat messages while I'm streaming talking about how useless he is.
I mean, if you think about his scene parkouring all around while making his comment about Regulus's power, maybe that'll happen next episode. You never know. I don't know if, you know, like if it's supposed to be something they intentionally cut out to save it for next episode. But if you think about like everything that happened in this episode, and like, is it like it took a year and a half to make this episode? Would they go out of their way to animate the Subaru walk, you know, doing parkour around the city? Would have been cool to see. But him standing triumphantly above Regulus and looking down and, you know, basically calling out his powers was also like a pretty good direction in my opinion. But hearing about the parkour stuff, I would love to see it still.
Subaru vs. Sirius was cut, parts of Subaru vs. Regulus were cut. Literally any and all competence from Subaru is being removed, and it's making him look like a sports commentator rather than someone with an active presence in these fights.
Yeah. Is he doing much? He kind of just chilling in the anime, right? Was he doing anything crazy? I mean, he's utility support, just moving stuff around, right? Sounds like the source material, though, he had a lot more involvement.
I think these cuts are what is ultimately so frustrating about this episode to me. Oh well, until next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video...
Ignorance is bliss. Oh man, like, I don't know about you guys, but he has a very interesting tone of voice that reminds me of like Moist Critical. But at the same time, he speaks at 3 times the speed. So it's sometimes hard to like digest what the fuck he's saying and work off of it. But the cut content is still enjoyable regardless. Please go check out Azarata's content. Here's the link to the channel. Boom, boom, boom. Go give it a like if you did. Check out his other ReZero content. I'll see you guys next time.